Welcome to Space Nexus. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. A single television ad has plunged the United States and Canada into an unprecedented economic conflict. On November 16, 2025, the two allies are locked in a bitter trade war, sparked not by failed negotiations but by a political gamble from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Ford used the voice of Ronald Reagan to criticize U.S. trade policy, unraveling decades of cooperation and putting thousands of jobs at risk. What began as a provincial ad campaign has escalated into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. President Donald Trump, citing the ad as a personal affront, terminated all trade talks and imposed punishing tariffs on Canada. Ontario, Canada's industrial heartland, is now at the epicenter of the fallout. This story explores the anatomy of the trade war, the controversial ad, Trump's explosive reaction, and the economic impact on Ontario. We'll examine the political maneuvering, the condemnation from unexpected corners, and the broader social consequences. The US-Canada relationship, once a model of stability, is now cracking under the weight of tariffs and political animosity. The livelihoods of millions on both sides of the border are now at risk. The crisis began with an audacious ad campaign from Doug Ford's Ontario government. In October 2025, a powerful ad aired in key US markets, featuring Ronald Reagan's voice warning against protectionist policies, directly challenging President Trump. Ford's strategy was bold: bypass the White House and appeal directly to Americans, hoping to pressure Trump to reverse course. Ford defended the move, calling it a mission accomplished for sparking debate in the US. The ad was a direct challenge to Trump's economic philosophy, using Reagan, a Republican icon, to create a wedge within Trump's base. The message, Trump's protectionism betrays conservative principles. The ad didn't appear in a vacuum. US-Canada trade relations had been deteriorating since Trump's inauguration. Earlier disputes like Canada's digital services tax had already strained talks. Ford's gamble was that public pressure could succeed where diplomacy failed, but the move would have immediate, dire consequences for Ontario. The ad's calculated timing and messaging targeted Trump's political base, hoping to force a policy shift. Instead, it provoked a swift and severe backlash. The campaign's fallout would soon engulf both countries in economic turmoil. Ford's attempt to protect Ontario's economy would end up putting it in greater jeopardy. The stage was set for a dramatic escalation. President Trump's response to the Reagan ad was immediate and explosive. On October 24, 2025, he announced on social media, "All trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated." He accused Canada of interference and labeled the ad fraudulent. The announcement sent shockwaves through diplomatic and economic circles, instantly halting scheduled trade meetings. Trump's administration followed up with a sweeping 10% tariff on Canadian goods, on top of existing tariffs on steel, aluminum, and auto parts. The timing was disruptive, coming just before major international summits. Trump's rationale was seen as a pretext. The real issue was the personal challenge to his authority. The move marked a fundamental shift. Disputes were no longer handled through negotiation, but by unilateral action. The US signaled it would use its economic might to punish perceived defiance. Canada, especially Ontario, was now in the direct line of fire. Years of trade cooperation were wiped away in a single post. The diplomatic crisis had become a full-blown economic war. There was no diplomatic off-ramp in sight. Trump's tariffs have devastated Ontario, Canada's manufacturing engine. The province's unemployment rate is projected to hit 7.8%, leaving 700,000 people jobless. Factories are slowing, layoffs are mounting, and the promise of stable jobs is vanishing. Major automakers like Stellantis and GM are moving production to the US, eliminating thousands of Canadian jobs. These aren't just numbers, they're families and communities facing uncertainty. Ontario's population boom, driven by immigration, has outpaced job creation, intensifying competition for work and straining social services. The trade war has turned a demographic challenge into a crisis, especially for young people. The Ford government has responded with over $30 billion in emergency relief, blowing a massive hole in the provincial budget. The deficit is now projected at $13.5 billion for the year. A brief rebound in October saw some job gains, but the long-term outlook remains bleak. As long as tariffs remain, Ontario's economic pain will persist. The province is under siege with no clear end in sight. The stakes for Ontario's future have never been higher. The trade war has ignited fierce debate in Canada, thrusting Doug Ford into the national spotlight. Ford has embraced the role of defender, claiming support from other premiers and framing his fight as patriotic. Ottawa, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, has been more cautious, focusing on free trade principles and avoiding direct confrontation. The public is deeply divided. Some praise Ford's boldness, others condemn his tactics as reckless. Supporters see him as a champion for Canadian workers. Critics blame him for escalating the crisis and undermining diplomacy. The ad's mission accomplished narrative is hotly contested. The debate rages in media and online, reflecting a nation torn over how to respond to American pressure. Canada's unity and strategy are being tested as never before. The controversy deepened when the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation condemned Ford's use of Reagan's voice. The foundation stated Ontario had no permission to use Reagan's likeness and accused Ford of misrepresenting his message. Legal action was threatened, adding a new front to the conflict. Critics noted that even China had used the same Reagan quote against Trump, undermining Ford's patriotic appeal. The foundation's rebuke stripped the ad of its intended authority and exposed the ethical risks of using historical figures in political battles. Ford's attempt to leverage Reagan backfired, drawing condemnation from Reagan's own guardians. The backlash further complicated Ontario's position. The trade war's impact goes beyond economics, reshaping Ontario's political and social landscape. Doug Ford has emerged as a national figure, challenging the traditional role of the Prime Minister in foreign affairs. This has created tension with Ottawa and blurred lines of responsibility. Economic hardship is fueling anxiety, resentment, and social tensions, especially around jobs, immigration, and resources. The crisis is eroding Canadians' trust in the US as a reliable partner. The deep integration that once brought prosperity now feels like a vulnerability. Calls to diversify trade and reduce dependence on the US are growing. The social and cultural ties between the countries are being tested as never before. The friendly border has become a source of apprehension and mistrust. Experts agree. Ford's ad was a political miscalculation that poured gasoline on a smoldering fire. The termination of talks has closed the only path to resolving the tariff dispute. Diplomatic channels are frozen, and a resolution would require concessions neither Ford nor Carney can make. Upcoming international summits now risk public confrontation, not quiet diplomacy. Trump's actions raise questions about the stability of trade agreements like the USMCA, signaling that personal politics can override treaties. This sets a dangerous precedent for all US trading partners. Ontario faces a painful period of economic restructuring. Lost jobs may never return. The lesson in a trade war with a much larger partner: there are no winners, only varying degrees of loss. The province must now reckon with the consequences of political brinkmanship. Doug Ford's ad and the ensuing trade war are a cautionary tale for the 21st century. A single political gamble fractured a stable trading relationship, inflicting real harm on workers and communities. Tariffs born of anger are dismantling decades-old supply chains. The crisis underscores the value of dialogue and the dangers of abandoning it. Both countries are losing. Canadian businesses lose their main market. Americans face higher prices. The message is clear. Protectionism is a dead end. For the sake of workers, businesses, and the future, a return to free and fair trade is essential. The cost of this trade war is simply too high to pay.